In Autobiography of a Yogi, when Paramhansa Yogananda meets Sri Yukteswar, his guru, for the first time, Sri Yukteswar says, "Oh, my own, you have come." And he says, "I give you my unconditional love." It's such a sweet, touching moment in that book. But then soon, Sri Yukteswar says very sternly that I won't accept you as a disciple easily. There must be a complete surrender by obedience to my strict training. And then a similar conversation happens between Paramhansa Yogananda and Swami Kriyananda that was narrated in the New Path. Swami Kriyananda comes to Yoganandaji and says, "I want to be your disciple." And Yoganandaji accepts right away. And he says, "I give you my unconditional love. Will you give me yours?" Swami Kriyananda immediately says yes. But then there comes the next question. Will you give me your unconditional obedience? So that unconditional obedience, I wasn't sure if I'm ready. Because I've never done that. I've always lived till that moment in my life, or in this life at least, that I've always lived with my own will. I decide I'll do this, and then I put my energy, and done. I thought that's how it works. But as Yoganandaji said, our own will is guided by whims and fancies. And if we really want true freedom, we need to attune our unreliable will to the wise will of God and the Gurus. Today's topic, we said, attuning our will to God's will. But this attuning may sound a little mild compared to what it takes, because it is actually about surrendering completely. And surrender requires courage. Do we really have that courage? And as the reading mentioned, Jesus Christ he showed the highest example of this surrender and courage. He knew what's coming. He knew he's going to be arrested, imprisoned, and then crucified. And so his body will perish. His disciples, his dear disciples, will suffer. They have to go through lots of trials after their guru departs. So in that Garden of Gethsemane, while disciples fell asleep, Jesus was praying to God, "Father, do I really have to do this?" He said, "Let this cup pass from me." But in the end, he said, "Not as I will, but as you will." And he said, "Thy will be done." Thy will be done. Let's take an example from Swami Kriyananda's life also. When he started Ananda in California more than 50 years ago, he purchased a piece of land and he was building what is now called Ananda Meditation Retreat. And he was pretty much the only one who can earn money to, pay for that land and to get Ananda going. He had to constantly, think about money. How much am I earning? How much do I have to pay? By when? And that gave a big burden on his mind, because he says, he didn't like to think about money at all. Even from childhood, when he was in school, he would, whenever a math problem shows up saying, okay, a farmer earns X amount dollars or spends X amount dollars, then his mind shuts off, freeze. But so he had this resistance. Like, why do I have to go through all this? Sounds familiar? We all had similar experience, maybe more or less in one way or another. We don't like it, but we have to do it. No one else can do it. So, Swami Kriyananda had to surrender his will, his likes and dislikes, and persevere. He worked very hard and finally paid off all the money he had to pay. And the victory from this experience, or the real gain, Swamiji says, was not really the fact that Ananda got that property or that retreat got started. But the real gain was the strength of his will, which came as a result of doing what he had to do, regardless of whether he liked it or not. And he did it willingly. He surrendered, and then once he surrendered, he didn't resist. Do it wholeheartedly with joy and enthusiasm. But sometimes we wonder, but how do I know what God wants from me? How do I know His will? So Nayaswami Asha from Palo Alto, she asked a hypothetical question to Swami Kriyananda one day. She asked, if I were in a concentration camp and a guard comes and starts beating a person next to me, what do I do? Do I intervene and stop but risk my life? Or just watch and save myself? What does God want? And Swamiji's answer was, if you want to know God's will in such a moment of crisis, you should practice when it is easier. You have to develop the habit of listening to God's will in all circumstances of your life. Then, when such extreme condition comes, you know what God wants. You can listen His will. So let's not procrastinate. Let's start practicing. We have so many temptations in our life that keeps, our attention away. But Master Yogananda-ji told a very amusing little story of a cat and sparrow on this point. One day, a cat catches a sparrow for his dinner. Okay, but this sparrow was wise, so the sparrow tells the cat that, before you have such a nice dinner, you should clean yourself and freshen up. So the cat thinks that's a good idea. So he starts cleaning, licking his face and, legs and whatever. You can imagine where the sparrow goes, right? So after a while, the cat is like, okay, I'm ready. The sparrow, sparrow, come. Let's have dinner. Sparrow is like, what are you talking about? He's up on the tree. But this is what happens also to us. Sometimes we know we have this delicious dinner of meditation and God communion waiting for us, but then we start doing something else. Oh, let me do this first, and then I will have this meditation very properly. And it never happens. So, let's not do that. Let's not miss the opportunity. Once a woman asked Swami Kriyananda, she was facing two choices. She said, I have two options, and depending on which one I take, my life in the next few years will change. Which one should I take? I've been asking my guru, I've been praying him over and over again, but he is not answering. Swami Kriyananda's reply was, Master is pleased because you have asked. Okay. Choose either one, it doesn't matter, as long as you are offering whatever you are doing to him, to your guru, to God, with devotion. So ultimately, it comes down to our devotion and faith. I'll close with this passage from the Gita. Lord Krishna says, absorb yourself in me, be wholly devoted to me, worship and bow to me alone. So shall you undoubtedly reach me. This I promise you faithfully, for you are dear to me. When we offer our faith and devotion, he gives us courage to surrender, and that unconditional obedience will naturally follow. Oh.
The word surrender is a tricky word because in day-to-day life, surrender means giving up fighting. But this surrender, when you are in the path of spirituality, is attuning to God's will every second of our life. And why is this surrender required? Swami Kriyananda says in the Art and Science of Raja Yoga, he basically explains why Paramhansa Yogananda says that the human will is guided by the whims and fancy. He says the point between the eyebrow is the center of reason. The center of heart is where your likes and dislikes are centered. The feelings are centered. Nobody says, I love you with all my kidney. They say, I love you with all my heart, because that's where feelings are centered. For a normal human being, when the energy enters into the medulla, flows out into this world, the energy is downward direction, so the reason will follow the feeling, which is basically your likes and dislikes. Likes and dislikes are nothing but your karma. So instead of following your karma, every second of the day, the decisions we make are based on our shortcomings. What is the second sutra of Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga? It is Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodh, which means neutralizing the vortices of likes and dislikes. The very things which we need to neutralize is what is guiding our day-to-day decisions. So we are our best friend, we are our worst enemy. So the only way out is to surrender our will to God's will, because God's will knows what will take us towards liberation, towards freedom. Our own will doesn't. It is dictated by our prenatal and whatever likes and dislikes we acquired in this lifetime. Now, once you are liberated, like Paramhansa Yogananda or Swami Sri Yukteswar, what did they do? Let's see a few examples from our line of gurus. Now, as Chika said, Paramhansa Yogananda underwent a strict training through Swami Sri Yukteswar. Basically, he said, I'm going to be in Banaras. I would not go back and join college, because his guru's will was he should continue the education. But he did not. So when he met again, he said that since I showed my unconditional love, now you disrespect my wish. Next time you have to coax me. You have to, give that assurance that I have your unconditional obedience. And Swami Sri Yukteswar also, Paramhansa Yogananda quotes Swami Sri Yukteswar in Autobiography, when Yukteswar ji says, allow me to discipline you. He is not forcing his will on his disciple. He is saying, allow me to discipline you. Why, sir? Is Yogananda's question. He says, when I encountered my guru, Lahiri Mahashaya, my will was guided by whims. But when I attuned my will to Lahiri Mahashaya's wisdom-guided will, my own will became free because it was guided by wisdom. In the same way, Yogananda continued, I discovered that by attuning my will to Sri Yukteswar's wisdom-guided will, my will too became free. That is the freedom we will get if we surrender our will. Now this, without surrender, it is not possible, because feelings dominate our life. And the advertisement, people who make the advertisement know this very well, this trick. If we convince somebody's feeling, then the reason will follow. For example, you can see in a toothpaste advertisement, a person, they don't list, this is the toothpaste, these are the benefits, they don't end there. He uses the toothpaste, he walks across a hall, he meets a girl, and that girl is so happy with the toothpaste he uses, and they fall in love. Now this guy's, the person who's watching the advertisement, his feeling is convinced, if I use this toothpaste, if I use this and this, I will get what I want. And he just puts his reason aside and just buys the product. So the whims and fancies cannot lead us to freedom. It will lead us further towards bondage. And Lahiri Mahashaya also, when in the chapter Autobiography of Yogi, he cures his disciple. His disciple Rama was blind from birth. After Lahiri Mahashaya's blessing, he gains eyesight. He could see after that, the first time in his life. And Yogananda ji writes that it was evident in all miracles performed by Lahiri Mahashaya that he never allowed the ego principle to consider itself a causative force. By perfection of resistless surrender, the Master enabled the prime healing power to flow freely through him. Resistless surrender is the word he is using. Now, did Yogananda have a desire in his life? Yes. He wanted to go to Himalayas. When he was a kid, he decided to run away. In fact, he tried twice and he failed. But where did he end up going? To USA. Did he want to go to USA? Was it his desire to go to USA? No. He followed his guru's will. What was Lahiri Mahashaya's desire? He wanted to stay with a band of disciples in Himalayas. Did he end up staying there? No. He came back to Banaras. He was there. He was an accountant till he's retired. Imagine, this person is liberated. He's free. He doesn't have any lessons to learn. Yet he had to go to office every day. Because his guru said so. He attuned his will to his guru's will. Mahavatar Babaji wanted to leave his body and merge with the infinite. When Mataji requested him to retain the body, he said, God has spoken His will through you. He obeyed God's will. As Chika, pointed out, that Jesus Christ, you should also understand that Jesus Christ, all the yogis are not just common people like us. They are one with God. The power they had, the things they were capable of doing was nothing short of miracle. When they came to arrest Jesus, they asked, who is Jesus? Who is Yeshu here, Yeshua? And then he just put one step in front and said, I am He. And that word and that one step had that power to throw off the guards from the floor. They just flew behind. And Peter was angry. He went and cut one of the guards' ears. Christ put the ear back. That's the power He had. Yet He was allowed to be crucified. Because why? And He did not resistless surrender. He did not pray to God, God, I know your plan for me is crucifixion. Can we change it to poison because it might be quicker? No, He did not do that. He said, let Thy will be done. And into your hands I guide my spirit. He also said that I can summon 12 legions of angels and they will take care of the situation right now. He did not. Despite having so much power, despite being one with God, they still chose to, follow God's will. What are we waiting for? We too can do the same thing, follow God's will. And why? Two more examples I can give. One is Draupadi, when she was being disrobed. First she was catching her part of a sari and shouting Krishna, Krishna. Krishna never came. At one point she surrendered. First she was just calling on Krishna. Then she surrendered. She said, if I have to be disrobed, let me be. Let Krishna's will be done. Why should I worry? And then she let go of the robe and then she prayed, pranamed and said, Krishna. And then when he pulled, Krishna was there to help her. That resistless surrender, no matter, even I might be ashamed in this place, in front of all these people, I don't care. Let God's will be done. And then God comes to help. And Arjuna also, why did Pandavas win the battle of Kurukshetra? As many of you might know, Paramhansa Yogananda said that the 5 brothers actually represent the 5 chakras within the body, and all the 5 chakras, each denoting Nakula, Sakateva, Bhima, Arjuna, and the elder brother Dharma, all of them, they surrender their self to Krishna, which is the point between the eyebrows. Arjuna gave the rein of the chariot to Krishna to guide. Without his guidance, they wouldn't have won the war. They surrendered, allegorically, they surrendered their will to Krishna's will. That's the reason they won the war. And surrendering doesn't mean being passive. Just praying once a day, saying, Tvameva Mata Chapita Tvameva, everything is yourself, I surrender, and then going on doing what we want to do, what we think is right, is not the right way to go about. Every single time we need to ask our Guru, ask God, what you want me to do. And it might be different from what I want to do, I should do, or your friend should do. For example, although all that powerful Jesus Christ was, he got crucified. Take Guru Gobind Singh, for example. He was an enlightened person. He was liberated. He did not surrender. He formed an army and he fought against the invaders. That was God's will. Krishna again said, and Arjuna wanted to surrender, but surrender to the wrong reason. He wanted to surrender to the whim. Basically, he threw his bow and arrow and said, I give up. I can't fight with Kauravas. They are all my brothers. I can see my uncle. I can see my friends. I can see my cousins there. I'm not going to fight. But Krishna said, take up the bow and arrow and fight. Which means he didn't say to surrender. He said to fight. Fight the whims and fancies of heart, but surrender your will to God. So that is an active surrender. Now, a question which you can go home and ask yourself, what would you surrender? What is truly yours to surrender? Our body, which is not permanent, our time, which is not permanent, which is not ours basically. The money we earned is not ours. It was all taken from this earth. What we truly have, we are left with, is our likes and dislikes, which means our karma. That's the only thing which is going to come with us life after life. That's the only thing we can call our own. And that is what we are going to surrender to God and Gurus. And is that so difficult? Surrendering our karma, which is causing more pain than happiness. So if we understand that surrendering to God is actually liberating, it becomes easy. And I'll end with one of the quotes from Autobiography of Yogi, where Yogananda says, my relationship with Sri Yukteswar, somewhat inarticulate, nonetheless possessed all eloquence. Often I found his silent signature on my thoughts. That's where I'm aspiring to be. Every thought I have, every little ambition I have, every action I do, I want my Guru's silent signature on it. Why? For the most selfish reason, because that's what will lead me towards liberation. Thank you.